Their name pops up on your phone. It's not someone you hurt, not someone toxic, not someone you blocked and deleted. It's someone you used to love. Someone who, 5 years ago, you couldn't imagine your life without. And now, you stare at the text, you read it, and you feel heavy. Not angry, not annoyed, just tired. Because you know that to reply, you have to perform. You have to put on the version of yourself that used to exist. The one who laughed at the same jokes, who cared about the same things, who fit into the shape of that friendship. And that person, they don't live here anymore. We talk a lot about toxic breakups, about red flags and boundaries, and cutting off people who hurt us, but we don't talk enough about the quiet grief of outgrowing someone, the kind of loss that doesn't have a villain, the kind where no one did anything wrong, but the friendship still died. It's not dramatic, it's just over, and you're left holding the guilt of it, wondering if you're cold or selfish or broken for letting go of someone who once meant everything. So let's talk about it. Not the betrayals, not the blow-ups, the slow, inevitable drift that happens when one person evolves and the other stays the same, and why it's not cruelty, it's just growth. Here's the thing about your brain. It's a prediction machine. Every time you see an old friend, your brain doesn't just see them, it sees a file, a stored memory of what it felt like to be around them 5 years ago. The comfort, the ease, the familiarity. Your brain predicts this will feel good, this will feel like home. And then you meet up, or you call, or you text, and it feels flat. You're talking, but you're not connecting. They're laughing, but it's at something you don't find funny anymore. They bring up the good old days, and you realize you don't live there anymore. You've moved on. They haven't. And your brain, it registers that mismatch as a loss. Psychologists call this a prediction error. You expected connection, you got performance, and that gap between what you expected and what you got feels like grief. Now, here's where it gets deeper. If you have a high need for cognition, which basically means you crave intellectual depth, meaning, existential conversations, small talk feels like torture. It's not that you're pretentious, it's that your brain literally craves substance. When a friend only wants to gossip or relive high school or talk about surface-level things, it feels like chewing on cardboard. You're going through the motions, but you're not being fed. And here's the brutal part. They might feel fine. They might leave that conversation feeling great, like nothing's changed. But you leave feeling drained, hollow, like you just spent 2 hours pretending to be someone you're not. That's not their fault, and it's not yours. It's just what happens when two people's brains stop speaking the same language. Let's talk about why being around old friends can feel so exhausting. You know how when you go home for the holidays, you suddenly revert to being 16? Your parents treat you like a kid, your siblings push the same buttons, and you find yourself falling into old patterns you thought you'd outgrown. That's called regression, and it happens with old friends too. See, every relationship locks you into a role. The funny one, the responsible one, the mess, the listener. And when you're around people who knew you in that role, they unconsciously expect you to stay there. The problem is, you've changed, you've grown, you've done the work. You've been to therapy or moved across the country or rebuilt yourself after a breakup or survived something that fundamentally altered who you are. But they didn't see that transformation. They still see the old you. And when you're around them, you feel this pressure, this invisible weight to shrink back down into that old version, to be who they remember, to play the part. And it's exhausting. Psychologists call this cognitive load, the mental effort required to maintain a mask. And here's the thing, you're not faking to be mean, you're faking to keep the peace, to avoid the awkward conversation where you have to explain that you're not that person anymore. But maintaining that performance, it takes energy, so much energy. And after a while, your nervous system starts sending you a very clear message. This isn't safe. This isn't sustainable. We need to leave. You're not tired because they're bad people. You're tired because pretending to be your 2019 self in 2026 requires a level of emotional labor you just don't have anymore. So let's ask the real question. Why did you change? Most people assume that if a friendship ends, someone did something wrong. But sometimes the reason is simpler and harder to explain. You went through something. A loss, a breakup, a mental health crisis, a career shift, a pandemic. Something that broke you open and forced you to rebuild. And when you rebuilt, you didn't go back to who you were. You became someone new. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. And here's the thing, it's not rare. Studies show that somewhere between half and 2/3 of people who endure significant hardship don't just bounce back, they bounce forward. They don't return to baseline, they evolve past it. Your values shift, your priorities change. The things that used to matter, status, appearance, what people think, stop mattering. And the things that didn't used to matter, authenticity, depth, peace, become non-negotiable. And your old friend, they didn't go through that storm. They're still who they were. And that's not a judgment, that's just a fact. They're bonding with the pre-storm version of you, the one who cared about the same things, who laughed at the same jokes, who laughed at the same fears. But that person doesn't exist anymore. And here's the part that hurts. You're not judging them for staying the same. You're just realizing that your new, expanded self can't fit into the old, smaller container of the relationship. It's like trying to wear your middle school clothes. They're not bad clothes. They're just not made for who you are now. Let's talk about the guilt. Because if you're the kind of person who outgrows people quietly, you've probably been called cold, distant, selfish. You've been accused of cutting people off or thinking you're too good for them now. And maybe you've internalized that. Maybe you think there's something wrong with you for not being able to force a connection that doesn't exist anymore. But here's what's actually happening. Pattern recognition. Your nervous system is a surveillance camera. It's constantly collecting data. And when it notices that every time you interact with this person, you feel drained, not energized, not seen, not safe, it starts running a cost-benefit analysis. It's not cruel, it's protective. Your brain is asking, does this connection add to my life or does it take from it? And if the answer is take, your nervous system starts pulling away. Not because you're mean, because you've learned, maybe the hard way, that you can't pour from an empty cup. This isn't about building walls to keep people out. It's about setting boundaries to keep yourself intact. And here's the thing people don't tell you. Letting go isn't the same as giving up. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both of you is to stop pretending. There's this idea in psychology about decluttering, not just your closet, your life. When you let go of an object, you're not saying it was worthless. You're saying, this served me once, but I don't need it anymore. The same is true for people. Outgrowing someone doesn't mean they were bad or that the friendship was fake or that the love wasn't real. It just means that the version of you that needed that connection doesn't exist anymore. And here's the reframe that might help with the guilt. Letting off them out of obligation is actually disrespectful. Think about it. If you're only showing up because you feel guilty, you're offering them a performance, a ghost, a shell of who you used to be. They deserve someone who genuinely wants to be there, and so do you. Letting go isn't cruelty, it's honesty. It's saying, I can't be who you need me to be anymore, and pretending is hurting both of us. You can love someone from a distance. You can wish them well without carrying them with you. You can honor what the friendship was without forcing it to be something it's not. And if they call you cold for that, that's their grief talking. That's their loss. That's them holding on to a version of you that no longer exists and being angry that you won't shrink back down to fit in. But you don't owe anyone your past self. You don't owe anyone access to a version of you that you've outgrown. Growth isn't betrayal, it's survival. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for them and for yourself is to let go. Not with anger, not with drama, just with the quiet understanding that people grow in different directions, and that's okay. You're not broken for changing. You're not cold for choosing peace. You're just growing, and that's what you're supposed to do. Thanks for watching. And if you're grieving a friendship that didn't end with a fight, just with distance, I see you, and it's okay to let it go.